Hello, photographers and friends. It's Kurt here. I'm not very fancy today. I don't have my hat on, which is very embarrassing. My Humble Togs hat is usually on if you're watching me on YouTube. I'm not very fancy today, and funnily enough, we're talking about not being that fancy with a wonderful photographer, Hannah Paterson, who's a dog photographer or a pet photographer in Scotland and one of the most lovely and active members in Humble Togs Club. Hannah's built the kind of photography business I think more photographers need to hear about. She charges proper money for her work, and she creates physical products for her clients to put up on the wall. She has clients that travel hours to shoot with her, and she generally makes over £1,000 on her orders, and her clients absolutely love her. She also has absolutely no interest in becoming endlessly busy. And I'm always saying to her, hey, you could try this or try this. With that idea, you should do this. And she's like, Kurt, nah, I'm good. I'm quite happy not being endlessly busy. And it also tells me about a very expensive mentoring day with a photographer who was absolutely convinced he knew more than she did, including apparently more about dogs than a professional dog photographer. It involves a light meter, a dying Labrador, and one particularly arrogant response, which is rather funny. Then we also get into a more personal conversation with Hannah. She actually took some time away from the club for a little while, and I was really worried about her. I reached out to her. I said, are you okay? And we didn't hear back from her. I thought I didn't know what was happening, but she just had to take a bit of a mental health break. And she talks about that and what that was about. She talks about PTSD, anxiety, and OCD following a traumatic experience that she had happen on a photography session. But there's a few lessons that she learned there and wants to pass those on as well. She's here to share and tell you what happened in that period and also what happened when she finally asked for help. So this episode is really about three things: charging more, working less, and looking after yourself. Let's get into it. Here's my not very fancy but very successful friend, Hannah.
We are coming to you live from across the world. Hannah is in the UK and Scotland. I'm here in my auntie's house. So tell us where you've come to with photography and how you got there.
I feel like this is where people tell the story of, they were born with a camera in their hand and all that stuff. And yeah, that's not the case.
Wasn't for me either.
No.
Yeah.
When I left school, I went to work at a stud farm with horses.
Right.
I was supposed to go and do a degree in music. That was the chosen path. But at the last minute, I decided I didn't want to go and study music. I wanted to work with horses. So off I went when I was 17 years old. I did that for about 10 years. I worked all over the world. I lived in New Zealand, Australia, Germany, Ireland, did show jumping, racehorses, all that jazz. I eventually came back to Scotland and went back into this stud work. And I'd done it for a long time. And, I was tired. It's a really hard physical job. It's long days, very little holidays, hard physical work. I'd broken a lot of bones. And I thought, what am I going to do instead of this? Because it's all I'd done since I left school. So I thought, well, what do I like doing? And all these places I went and the horses I met at the races and the show jumping competitions and all these things, I always had a camera. I always had one with me. And it wasn't even an SLR. It was a little, stick it in your pocket, point and shoot. Kind of thing. But I really liked taking photographs. I thought, okay, let me see what that would look like. I did everything backwards. I went straight to work from school, and then 10 years later I went to university to do my degree, which was photography and fine art.
Right. And what age were you then?
Around 26, 27-ish, thereabout.
Okay. Yeah.
When I graduated from there, I went to work for a company. They had studios all over the country. I think they were Australian based. The owner, I think, lived in Australia. Pixie Photo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're in the shopping centres.
Yeah. And you we took photographs of babies. So I went to work for them. Sort of fresh out of university, thought this was wonderful that I'd got myself a job.
Yeah.
It wasn't wonderful. I did it for 2 years. And the job itself was lovely. You met all the families and the kids were great. The actual photography part of the job was lovely, but the company itself, I just didn't like the way they operated. It was all hard sales. It was all numbers. It was all targets. It was all this sort of really hard way of doing business.
At a very low cost. Just to explain to anyone, this was, it's similar to me. I started in Santa Photos, which is not that dissimilar, honestly, from this company, because what they did is they had a set up in a department store. So back in Australia, it was Grace Brothers. In America, it would be like putting it in Macy's or whatever. So the photos would be taken there, and it was very cheap, generally speaking, compared to photography pricing across the board. So they would try to get print packages and things like that back then. And I imagine what you're saying is absolutely correct. They would have been just
Yeah.
really trying to make some money.
Yeah, and it was sort of this kind of hook. They paid like £7 or something, and they got this included picture. But you took the most basic rubbish photo. I mean, it wasn't a rubbish photo, but it was just, there was nothing special about it. It was just a
Right.
kid sat on a cushion,
Yeah.
And then once you'd taken that photograph, then you went on to do the amazing ones. And these were
Oh, interesting.
yeah. So then these were the ones that people wanted to buy because they were, the ones where you put in all the props, and they got all these little sort of letter blocks and the sunflowers and all these wonderful special things, but those weren't included.
Oh, interesting. That's the first time I've ever heard of that, where a lot of photographers back in that era were doing that, where you do a shoot, you include one image, but I've always heard it to be like one image of whatever they choose.
No.
These guys were doing no, we'll choose the image, and it's the boring one.
Yeah, so these guys, so what you would do, you would always start every session on a plain white backdrop. Depending on the age of the child, they would be sitting or they would be lying on their tummy or whatever. And that plain, rubbish, horrible backdrop was the included photo. That was it.
Yeah.
You didn't get a choice. That was what they were getting.
Right. Yeah.
And then once you had done that, you did then all the amazing, wonderful photographs.
Now, I'm pretty sure the photos around my mum's house would just be that free one, I would imagine. Having said that, there's one there of my sister. It's like a very profile shot of her, and she's like 3 years old or 4 years old or something. And it is beautiful. It's old fashioned now, but it is beautiful. And I think mum does talk about it as well. That one was an expensive photo, and probably at the time, it might have been $20, $30, $40, or something like that, which was expensive compared to maybe the freebie £7 one or the $5 one in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah. The company, it doesn't exist now. I think they went into administration.
Yeah.
I can probably admit this now. We used to have to, if we weren't shooting, if we didn't have any customers, I got sent all over the country to all these different stores with a mobile studio.
Yeah.
We set up in that studio for a week, and then we went to somewhere else. If we didn't have any customers, we had to go and collect leads. So we had these forms, and we had to go out into the street with a clipboard and get people's names and email addresses. And we had to send those back to head office. And we had to get 10 a day. No excuses, 10 a day. You had to get these leads. There were days when it was pouring with rain, it was miserable, it was freezing cold. There were no people. There was nobody about.
Yeah.
So I used to, and I know that other people did it. It wasn't just me.
Yeah.
Just used to start making up email addresses.
Nice. Yeah, totally. Scott Stevens at hotmail.com.
And sticking them in the envelope and sending
Steven
it
Scottson 79 at hotmail.com.
Like, I don't know how they didn't know that we were doing that, but yeah, I didn't enjoy the company, and it kind of got to a point where I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I making these guys all this money when I could just be doing it myself? I could be photographing the things that I actually want to photograph, because I never wanted to be photographing kids and families and things. That was never really what I enjoyed. So I did. I handed in my notice and I left. And I just started up taking photographs.
How long ago was that?
It'd be coming up 16 years. Yeah, I mean, and as well, I made the terrible mistake of charging £50 and here's all the digitals. And and I mean, I was thinking about that today, and I think a lot of the time when people start photography businesses, they price themselves based on how long they've been doing it, if that makes sense. Like, I think...
Yep. And I think I'll charge more when I get more experience.
Yeah, like I've only been doing this for a year, so I'm going to charge $100, and that's all I'm going to charge.
My value.
Yeah, that's what I'm valued at, because I've only been doing it for X amount of time. But I see photographers who have been doing it for 20 years that some people coming into the industry are wiping the floor with, and yet they're basing what they think their worth is on how long they've been doing it. But actually, you're worth as much, if not more, than these people that, because they've been doing it for decades, are comfortable charging that price because, well, they've been doing it forever. And don't do that.
And I think the thing to remember is, what are people paying for? They're not paying for you. They're booking in with you. Like, that's when you get people booking in with the personality of the person, but they're actually paying for the photos. And if anyone can take photos like you got up there of a flashlit dog looking cool on a plain background, you don't have to have a lot of experience for that. If that photo compared to someone that's doing 20 years could be very, very similar. and they're paying for the photo. So yeah, you can charge, not straight out at the gate, obviously, but with a couple of years of experience, start charging what pros charge, because people, when they are connected with their dogs, their families, their kids, will be happy to pay a high value price when
Yeah.
you give a high value service.
Yeah. And I mean, like, they're paying for your time as well. And I mean, I've come to realize probably most recently that my time is my most valuable thing.
Yeah.
And that's what you're paying for. Yeah.
And who's to say that someone who has been doing it for 2 years, who's to say their time is less valuable than your time just because you've been
Well,
doing
it
it for
isn't.
20 years? We all have time and we have a ticking clock.
Yeah.
And it's
Exactly.
everyone's time is the same.
Yep. That's exactly it. You know, and I know it comes back to sort of confidence and things like that, but know your worth. Don't devalue how much you and your time are worth.
I think, like you said, when people come into the industry and they look around and they value their time based on what they think other photographers are charging, that's the whole you got to do, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about how long that took you to get out of, or what you were doing at the start of your business.
It did take me probably a couple of years. And again, it came back down to that confidence level that, you know, I didn't think that I was good enough to be charging that amount of money, even though the photos that I was taking were better than what the people I was taking them for could do themselves. So in that sort of logic, you would say, well, okay, well, then you should be charging that. But yeah, it did take me a couple of years to sort of knock that on the head.
And did you go cold turkey, or did you have to slowly, like, how did you change it technically?
Yeah, I kind of did a gradual incline of like, every couple of months I'd bang on another 20 quid and keep going.
Right. So, but you were still giving away all the digitals,
No.
but raising the price? No?
That stopped immediately.
Right. Cold turkey.
And I spent hours building price lists and product lists, and I got product samples and I got print samples from all the different labs, and I got all this stuff. And it took a little while, but no, I did stop giving away digitals immediately.
Now, what is your broad strokes kind of product range?
So I don't have a lot of selection on my product list.
Yep, it's always good.
I feel like the more choices you give people, the less decisions they make. If you present them with 40 different frame moldings and this type of glazing and that type of varnish and this type of all the stuff.
Yeah, it's not just in narrowing down the images to the ones that they really love.
Yeah.
That's a 45-minute process. Just that. And then if you throw another bunch of decisions on after that, it can just get... So this is what I have now. At the start, I did do a little bit of that. Here's all these pretty moldings. Look at these. Wow. I have 2 frame moldings. I have the multi-aperture frames and I have single aperture frames, and I have 1 acrylic, and I have canvases. I don't know if this is a UK thing or a Scotland thing, but people love canvas prints. They love them. It's one of the most... Feels like an artwork.
Which actually is a good thing, because the margins are whoosh on canvases, because they're probably the cheapest medium that I can buy.
The frame and the printing,
Cheaper than framing, cheaper than acrylics. And so the margin on canvas is great, and it's actually a good thing that they're so popular. I mean, I don't love them. I have them, but it's not about me. It's, you know, if a client wants a canvas, they get a canvas, you know.
The thing about canvas, obviously, is that there's texture to a canvas. So when you print a photo on canvas, the photo is, you know, you could call it like polluted by the texture of the canvas, and that becomes part of what you see on the image. So for photographers, a lot of the time, sometimes that works and feels great, but a lot of times it's just adding things to the image that you maybe didn't want there.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you probably don't like it in metallic and acrylics and things, where the image is just clean and crystal clear. Feels nicer.
Yeah, I love acrylic. It's just, in fact, a client's acrylic got delivered today, and I haven't looked at it yet, but I can't wait to see it, because it was 3 little corgi dogs in the woods, and the couple, they had come photographed the 2 male dogs previously, and they've got a 3rd one, and they had brought them all again together. So we did the same shot that we did. They've got a 40 by 30 acrylic from that shoot, and they wanted the same shot but with the extra dog, and they've got it on acrylic again, so they're going to have the two. So I haven't looked at it yet, but it'll be good.
Great. Do you mind talking about the prices people pay? There are a lot of people, funnily enough, in the UK that I find in the club and with people I speak to online that say to me all the time, more often than honestly other places, the UK seems to be somewhere where a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I could never charge those prices because people in my town wouldn't pay those."
Mm.
You just mentioned a 30 by 40 acrylic. What do you charge in quid for that?
So that one is $750.
Yeah. And the client that came to you with the 3 corgis, what was their total sale when they bought that 30 by 40?
With the additional prints and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
It was above 1,000.
Right, above 1,000 quid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they've come back to you. And I think this is the thing is a lot of photographers, including myself, when you're first trying to get the confidence to charge decent money, you have that feeling of thinking, I don't want to rip people off. You know, how can I possibly charge someone for an acrylic or a canvas and charge them 800% markup? It seems like it's too much to charge someone. But again, you just explained to us how someone was really happy to pay that the first time and then came back to you again the next time. So it just shows you, and this is what happens over time, is that
Yeah.
when your clients show you that they value you, it really helps you just stop going into that thing of, well, they can't afford it. Shut up.
Yeah.
Let them
It's not up to
pay
you
what they want.
to decide what your client can afford. What your client can afford is not up to you. So never base your prices on what you think people can afford to pay. It's never going to do you any favors.
Yeah, totally. You're someone who I see in your home, you're wearing t-shirts like me. You're not someone that I see, flashing around a lot of money and whatever.
No.
Would you say you're your ideal client? Like, are you the type of person that would spend over £1,000 on a photo shoot?
On my dogs? Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Yeah. And maybe the dogs is different because I know for me, I'm actually not my ideal client. I wouldn't spend, over, $1,500, $2,000 on even our artwork. We have a few things around our home, but I'm not the type of personality. And I think there is this thing to dig into. There's a type of personality of people, and this is the ideal client for all of us as photographers. If you find the type of personality of people that love to support other people and love to pay money to that person to go, I value you, like that type of person exists a lot.
Yes.
And it's not that I'm not someone that likes to value people, but I think with just my money and the way I was brought up, I'm a lot more just money conscious and I spend money on experiences for the family and the things that I value over material possessions. And photography is somewhat a material possession, but I think if you find the ideal clients who aren't potentially like yourself, that's a part of this as well.
Yeah. I think on myself, never. Never.
Right. But
my dogs, absolutely. I was saying this to a friend the other day about, so it's Father's Day here on Sunday in the UK.
Yeah, it's Australian Father's Day too. And we're skipping it because I'll get my Father's Day when we go back in September.
Oh, okay.
So we're not doing Father's Day here. Everyone else around is, but I wish my dad a Father's Day, but we're skipping it.
And, my sisters and I, one of my brothers is in Australia and the other lives in New Zealand. So my sisters and I are taking my mum and dad out for dinner and we're going to this really posh restaurant resort place. And I just dread it because I'm just not fancy. I'm just
do you have a dress? Do you have a nice dress? I don't think I've ever seen you in one.
I know, but that's the other thing. I'm like, what am I going to wear? Like, I own wellies and tracksuit bottoms and hooded jumpers. And like, my sisters are so good at it. Like, they're so good at dressing themselves.
Dressing up.
And they're so good at being girls. And I don't do pomp and circumstance. Like,
I think you're very much like me. I'm not fancy, and that's with what I'm doing with Hubble Togs stuff too, because I'm putting out all this content, but I'm never like trying to make it fancy, and maybe that's hurting me. But I do think I'm hopefully collecting people like you who look at that and go, this guy at least isn't flashing around his Mercedes and blah blah blah, and say, look at my great big studio. And look, I used to have a great studio, but now I do most of the things from my auntie's house in Balmain or my daughter's bedroom in New York City.
Yeah.
Where I'm at the moment is my friend's physio clinic in Jesmond in Newcastle. and she has this little spare room in the back, and I've set up with my computer and stuff there, and that's a great situation for me there. But when we go home to New York City, I've got to try and find another space because I had a studio in Brooklyn a little while ago, but they've moved on, and I don't know what I'm going to do. But anyway, but yeah, let's not be fancy together.
I had an experience with a photographer in the UK here that was like that. And I it's quite a funny story, actually. I had gone down to his studio. I'd paid quite a lot of money to go to the sort of mentorship day thing. And I went down to his studio, and there was sort of a group of us, and we had to submit images, but we had to submit the RAWs and the edited versions for this image critique that he was going to do in his big fancy studio and all this. One of the images that I put in of an old Labrador called Polly. I first met Polly when she was 4 years old, and she had a session. And this image, she was 14, and her mum had contacted me and said, Polly has got bone cancer, and we don't know that she's going to be with us much longer. Can we please do another session on the beach, because she loves the beach? So with that kind of thing, it's sort of, absolutely, tell me where and when, and I'll be there. You know, I don't hesitate with stuff like that. So off we went to the beach, and lovely old dog, and she couldn't really hear anymore, she couldn't really see anymore, and you know, her body was sort of riddled with bone cancer. And we got this beautiful shot of her, and it's flashlit. Our closest beach has got an old castled ruin in the background, and she had just plonked herself right in the perfect spot. The sky was doing all sorts of crazy things. The castle was behind her, and I took the shot. I shot the shot, because when you have a dog like that that's old and you can't hear, can't see, if they plop themselves in the right place, you just take shot. And his commentary on it was, seeing the raw and then seeing the edit, was that I would have had to spend a lot less time editing if I had just used a light meter. And I said...
from the raw?
Yeah, from the raw to the edit. He said that...
A lot less time? What's a lot less? Like just pulling the exposure down?
He didn't actually ask me how long it had taken me to edit, which actually was probably about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So this was his comment, that I should have used a light meter. And I said, with all due respect, sir, I said, I have no doubt that you know more than I do about lighting and photography and, you know, all this in general. I said, but I know dogs, you know, I've got...
You don't muck around with a light meter if the dog sat down. And you're moving a flash. Again, just to explain to people, Hannah is like 80% flash photographer. Is that what you would say? Outdoor
70-30 maybe.
70-30?
Yeah.
You use a softbox and a single flash. The dogs are always very popping off the backgrounds because the flash is really like softbox hitting them. But, you know, you're talking about an experience where the dog is sat down in a perfect location. A lot of photographers, including myself, I don't usually use flash with dogs outside. I would just try and get that moment there and then. You're talking about having to move your flash and get it before the dog moves.
A dog that is old, riddled with disease, can't hear, can't see.
Yeah.
And I explained this to him. I says, look, I have a really extensive education in dog training and behaviour. I said, if I had said, just hang on a minute, let me faff around with a light meter for 10 minutes, it would have been over. I wouldn't have got the shot, and it wouldn't be hanging as a 1.5 meter wide portrait on their wall in their living room now.
Yeah.
And he scoffed at me. He went, he said, you may think you know more about dogs than I do, but I've owned dogs for 40 years. And I said to him, sir, I've owned a vagina for 35 years. That doesn't make me a gynecologist. And I picked up my things and I left. I thought, I cannot learn from this man, because this man thinks he knows everything about everything. I said, that's not mentorship. That's dictatorship. Like, you should have used the light meter. I was like, but I'm explaining to you why I didn't. And you're still not accepting it. You're saying that you know more than I do about everything. And I thought, okay, cool.
Yeah.
If that makes you happy, then like
the fancy guys with the fancy stuff sometimes are just
it was just we're not the same. It's just because you've owned dogs for 40 years doesn't.
I mean, throwing the vagina line in there is very nice, because there's a couple of levels of insult you're throwing out in there. It's nice. I like that one.
It's not, you know, I'm not a gynecologist. Just because you've owned something for 40 years doesn't make you an expert.
But again, it's just such an ego-driven conversation. You're trying to talk about the lighting and the experience and getting the subject, and his first thought is not to address the concern of what you had, but make sure the first thing he needs to address is the fact that his ego shouldn't take a beating.
A light meter. That's the answer to everything. Light meter.
I mean, why? If you know photography, who's using a light meter for portraiture? Like, no one. Like,
Nobody.
there's no reason to use a light meter. Like, wiggle a few dials, get your exposure about right, pop the flash on, you're done. Like, how far was your raw out?
Oh, it was, I mean, do you know what? I'll have a rake for it, because it must be about 8 years ago. But I'll find it. I'll still have it, and I'll put it in the group.
If it was like 3-4 stops overexposed, I would say that's a valid thing, and maybe a light meter would have got me there, but I still wouldn't have gone and used it.
No, I mean,
I got the shot. And
yeah.
if you can get a print 1.5 meters on the wall from a shot that's a bit overexposed, like, great.
And I mean, I don't even think it was. I think he was just being really...
Being a dick.
He just needed the world to know that he was the great so-and-so. And I thought, I can't learn anything here. I'm just going to take my vagina and go.
Take my vagina and go. I love your accent too. Take my vagina and go. Right. So
yeah, that was an experience. But yeah, it's...
Look, we could talk for a long, long time. I hope people have gotten some idea about your business. And again, if you are in the club a lot, you're one of the best members we have that is always commenting on things and always giving feedback and ideas to people. I do love that you're in the UK and you are charging what I would just call decent prices for things. Tell us a little bit about your business model and your life to work ratio that I love.
You mean that I work as little as possible?
Yeah. I think that's great. For someone like me, I'm always trying to work and always trying to do things. When I heard you were like, I just don't want to grow the business. I want to do like 2 shoots or whatever. And I'm completely happy with that. I'm like, I'm jealous of you.
I don't need any more money. I'm good.
Yeah. Great.
I think though that comes back to what you were saying. Like, I'm not fancy. I don't need fancy things. I don't need to keep up with the Joneses. I have my dogs and I have outside. I spend so much time outside and I love being in nature. I don't go out drinking. It's just not for me. I think I just like a simple life. I work so that we have enough, we don't need excess of anything really.
And so what are we talking about? Are we talking about a couple of shoots a month, or what's your goal, or your...
No, I mean, if I can do sort of 8 to 10 a month, I'm good. Yeah.
Couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And, some months are different. July's an interesting one because I haven't actually booked in any private shoots in July because I have 2 events to do, which actually those 2 events, so one is over 2 days and one is over 3 days. Those 2 events will bring in the same kind of revenue if I was shooting sort of 8 private sessions. And so I'll work 5 days in July, which is, I think, it's different for everybody. I mean, I think you have to be happy with what you have, and if you want more, then go get more. But if you're happy with what you have, then I would much rather spend sort of my time with my dogs or seeing my friends or doing things that we love to do. I really love doing scent work with the dogs, and I would rather spend that time kind of making those memories than working. In the same breath, I love what I do. I love photography sessions. I love doing the sessions. I love meeting the people. I love meeting the dogs. It's not like I hate my job. I love my job.
Yeah, of course. You just got this beautiful balance there of not getting too busy. And every time you post something, I say, well, you could do this, or you could, I was always like trying to help you grow a business. You're like, nah, Kurt, I don't need to. I'm fine. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
That would make me busy, Kurt.
Yeah. That would make me busy, Kurt. That's great. Do you do in-person consultations after the sessions?
I do. Mm-hmm. It depends on where the client has come from, because it happens often, but it blows me away every time. So I had a woman contact me the other day. She was asking for a session and she said, could it be in the afternoon? I said, yeah, of course. And she said it would take her 3.5 hours to get here. So it's 7-hour round trip. And that just blows my mind. I'm like, why? Why are you driving for 3.5 hours just to come to have me take your photographs? I'm like, what? So with her, it'll be online. It'll be done online because...
Yeah, like this one, like a Zoom.
I cannot ask this poor woman to drive another 7-hour round trip. to come back 2 weeks later and see her photos. I'm not going to do that to her.
Yeah. But you don't have a studio or anything. Where do you usually do that?
So I just do it in my little home studio that I have here.
Right. And do you have things on the walls
Yeah,
to display to people there? Yeah.
I have all the frames and options and things on my wall.
What software do you use to show the clients the images?
I just use, what is it called?
ProSelect or?
Oh, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
ProSelect is one of the best ones to use for, as you call it, the multi-aperture. You mentioned multi-aperture. I've never called it multi-aperture before, but yeah, when there's multiple prints in one frame.
Yeah.
And ProSelect is built in a way where you can have those presets and then you just drag the images into the frame. It's almost like on the wall. That's definitely the best software around for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't do it because a lot of people, as you said, especially certainly when they're starting, are just doing digital only, and people aren't even aware that's something that photographers do. So I do want to get into that with the coaching clients and people in the club as well. It takes years. It takes like a bit of time to get all that product range and get that sorted.
Yeah. I think it's sort of educating the client as well.
Totally.
I do that during a session, like, and make it part of the conversation of why you would print stuff rather than just getting digitals. You go down the road of, like a physical product, like digitals, you're going to put them on your computer and you're never going to look at them again. Or you're going to put them on Facebook and that'll be it. Whereas, you're printing, you've got them on your wall for longer than you're going to live, probably.
Every day of your life. Yeah. It's a severely different value.
But yeah, you sell it to them before you sell it, kind of.
Right. Yeah. All right. So I do want to touch on the stuff. I kind of thought a lot of our conversation today would be about this stuff, but I've really enjoyed and think it's really great value that we have talked about all those things for the members and the people that are trying to grow business. But tell us a bit about this horrible experience you had. You stayed away from us for a little while, and I reached out to you and said, "Are you okay?" And you said you just needed a bit of a break for an experience you had. Just go through that a little bit. I don't want you to walk through the experience again and relive it or anything with us, but I think the important point I want to make is that sometimes we just all need a mental health break.
Yeah.
I think certainly you took one. So just explain to people about what happened there and share as much as you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it. It's one of the beauties of I call her the lovely Jen, who is the lovely therapist that I got referred to. Yeah, so I basically, at the start of the year, this year, so it was sort of end of last year, I got diagnosed with, it was a triple threat. It was PTSD, OCD, and anxiety disorder. So the PTSD was from an experience that I had on a session with a client and her husband and their Rottweiler, who was a beautiful dog. And it was one of those sessions that everything went right. The dog was beautiful and every photograph was just perfect. Like it couldn't have gone better. And we were pretty much done with the session and we were walking back to the house, and I was a little way in front with the dog, and client and her husband were behind. And I heard her husband call out and said, "Hang on a second." And I turned round and my client was on her knees on the ground. I thought she'd sort of tripped and fallen. So I went back the way and said, "Gosh, is everything all right?" And he said, "Oh," she said she feels dizzy. Now, it was a morning session, so it was like 10:30 in the morning. And my head immediately went, okay, well, did you have breakfast this morning? Thinking, she's got dizzy because she's not had any breakfast or something. And he said, no, she's terrible. She never eats breakfast. She just has had coffee. And so I sort of said, okay, well, when we get back to the house, we can get you some toast and tea and something. So, and she got up and she was walking, she was talking, and I can't even remember what sort of time scale it was, but it couldn't have been more than 2 minutes. She said that head hurt and she started grabbing the back of her head. That's when it got bad because she was in pain. You could see she was in a lot of pain. And I said to her husband, why don't you run and get the car and bring it down so that we don't have to walk all the way back up? So he said, okay, that's great. So he took the dog and he ran to get the car. He had just disappeared out of sight. We had sat down on a log and he had just gone out of sight and she toppled over. She went blue and she toppled over. So I'm literally sitting there holding her with my phone ringing the ambulance. I'm like, what do I do? I'm on the phone to the ambulance. I'm sort of holding on to her and this car drove past and they stopped and they said, are you okay? And I said, I'm absolutely not okay. I'm not okay. Nothing is okay. And so thank goodness they got out and they sort of came to help. The husband came back at that moment as well. So everything was happening, CPR, and the ambulance man on the phone said, do you have a defibrillator? The guys that had stopped worked at the school along the road, and they said, we've got one at the school. So they went off, got the defibrillator, came back, did all that, and we're still doing CPR. The ambulance turned up. 16 minutes it took from me dialing 999 to the ambulance. 16 minutes.
Yeah, great.
Which was quite good for being in the middle of nowhere. So they arrived, and then obviously they just took over everything. There was wires and plugs and all this, everything. And then they took her to hospital, and it was one of those things that you just knew it wasn't good. So that was what the PTSD was related to. It was triggered by, I got something called labyrinthitis, which is like an infection in your middle ear, which makes you really dizzy, like horrendously dizzy. And my brain said, oh my God, well, you're dying. Obviously, you're going to die from a brain aneurysm, because, that's the woman that died.
And you saw that happen, yeah.
They all just started like this, and then that was how it kind of got triggered. And it wasn't until I met a really lovely doctor that she said, I think I know what this is, and I'm going to refer you to the psychology department. So they did that, and it was a funny thing because she was so lovely, and I saw her a few times, and she really wanted me to start taking medication, because she was really worried that, because obviously there's a wait to actually get in to see a psychologist. She was really worried that it was going to get worse and worse and worse, and she wanted me to take medication. And of course, maybe me, fiercely independent, I can fix everything myself.
Yeah.
I didn't want medication. I can do this myself. I don't need medication. And of course, there were SSRIs, which is, the fancy name for antidepressants. And I kept saying to her, I'm not depressed. I'm not depressed. I don't need medication. I'm not depressed. And she says, yes, but this particular one is for anxiety rather than depression. And I kept pushing back and saying, I'll fix this myself. I don't need that. And the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess, was I started to have nightmares, and I woke up at 3:00 in the morning, panic attack, couldn't breathe, dripping with sweat, heart was going 100 miles an hour, my whole body was shaking. I phoned, so we have a service in the UK called NHS 24, so you can phone them at any time for any problem outside normal working hours, and they have like a mental health section to it. So I just phoned them, and I just remember crying down the phone to this lovely man, and he said, you need to go and see your doctor tomorrow. So I did, and I admitted defeat, and I got the medication, and things got a little bit worse for a little while, but then just one day something just turned. And apparently this is how these medications work, that they do make you worse, which is just it seems really counterintuitive. They make you worse before they make you better. And it was just one day, everything just seemed to calm down. And then I got in to see the lovely Jen, and she has been a tremendous help. I mean, I'm happy to talk about it because people don't talk about it enough. And I think a big part of me was quite scared of it, like, because I'd never really experienced anything like that. I'd gone, 42 years not never having a mental health problem, and then all of a sudden I had 3. But I was scared to tell anyone, and I was scared because I think even in 2026, it's not talked about enough, and it's not accepted enough. There still is this sort of stigma, and there still is this sort of judgment that people have toward antidepressants and things like that. I think if I hadn't had that fear, if I hadn't had the, what are people going to say, and what are they going to think, and all that stuff, then maybe I would have got better sooner, maybe. And I think because when you're a photographer, you work on your own. You're only seeing people, like when you do a session, you see those people for like an hour and a half, and then they're gone again. Whereas you're not in a workplace where you've got sort of close colleagues and you've got people around you all the time that would probably pick up on things. Whereas when you're a photographer and you're on your own, it's very, very easy to become isolated. I think the more you become isolated, the harder it is to tell anybody that you need help. But get the help, basically.
Great, yeah. I think that's the important message.
Yeah, don't be scared of getting help. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks, and actually, what people are thinking is never what you think they're going to think.
Right. Yeah.
It's people are so kind, and they've
also got their own stuff going on. My daughter has a good example. She's always saying to me, like, I think that person over there is thinking that I am not looking what, like, she thinks that other people are thinking bad of her.
Yeah.
And I think all of us as humans have that thing of of thinking so much stuff that just isn't what's going on, and that can just
No, I know.
beat you down.
And it's madness. And it's a funny thing because you just don't know. Like the friends that I have sort of talked about it, and it kind of opens people up to talk about themselves as well. And it's sort of things that they never would have said before. Like they never would have let that out. And it's almost like, well, I can tell you that now because you're going through this and I'm going through this. And it kind of opens up doors when you start talking about the things that you go through. People all of a sudden go, oh God, well, I've been going through this. And you're like, wow, didn't know that. And it kind of opens up all these sort of conversations. And I think that's brilliant because I think people hold an awful lot inside, especially creatives. I think creatives are notorious for keeping things inside.
Totally.
Because we spend so much time just working by ourselves that, what you think people are thinking is never what they're thinking. I've learned that.
Yeah.
The two things I learned actually from this session where my client passed away, unfortunately, was download the What 3 Words app, because that app is the reason that the ambulance got there so quickly. The What 3 Words app, it basically, the entire world is broken into grid squares of 1 meter square, and each of those squares has their own unique 3 words, and you can give that to the emergency services and they can come to your exact location.
Yeah, when you had no ability to say, I'm at so-and-so address, I'm just in the middle of the woods or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about,
Yeah. And also take an emergency contact detail from your clients always, because if her husband had not been with her, because she was my client, she was the one I had conversations with, I communicated with, I had her contact details, but if her husband hadn't been with her, I wouldn't have known who to call. Always take emergency contact details for the people that are coming to see you, because
you can't get it. My next thought is like, oh, you just go to her phone, but you can't get into someone's phone without their passcode. You can't get into like see who their favorites are. You would have no information at all.
No,
that's a really good point. I've never done that. I've never taken that detail, but it's a good reminder for us all.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that nobody would ever have to use it, but you don't know. I didn't think I would ever have to.
Yeah, especially on those sessions where, like you said, you're with one other person. And I mean, I do that all the time, all day long. I'm doing 7-8 shoots today with individual people. We will be in a group and stuff, but I wouldn't know where to contact someone.
My session this afternoon was with a lady, just single on her own with her dog, and the majority of them are. Just one person comes with the dog. So
yeah, good thinking.
It's a good practice.
Yeah, I'll put the link to that app in the show notes so people can do that. I've downloaded it on my phone, but yeah, it's a good thing to have if you ever get stuck in that situation and have to order an ambulance or something where exactly you are. Let's wrap this up. I want to mention your testimonial on the Humble Talks Club is my favorite. Obviously, it's the one that people mention to me the most. The funny thing is when you made it, because if you go and check out Humble Talks Club, Hannah made a beautiful testimonial for me, which was kind of very your personality, but basically you said, it's great, all this stuff, great, blah, 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 blah. But then towards the end of it, you said, and Kurt's going to figure this out. You want to be jumping on while he's not charging much, You said $5 a month. So what I've done now is, because we've even gone up to $9 a month now.
Yeah.
So I've gone back on the video and I've put a little text thing on the video which says it is $9 a month now, but look, we went up and we'll go up again. So she's not wrong.
I'm gonna have to go look. I haven't seen it.
So thank you for that. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being an active member. You can take as many mental health breaks as you like. We will still love you and appreciate it when you come back. So thanks for joining, Hannah, and see you soon in the club.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you for listening. If you've loved this podcast, please leave a review online wherever you get your podcasts. We put a lot of words on there and say how much you've enjoyed it. I read every review that I see there, and it just really helps the podcast get out there to more audience. If you'd like to come and join Humble Talks Club, it's free to check out for 7 days, and that's $9 a month now. So it was $5 a month, but now it's $9, and it may go up again soon. The more and more members we get, and the more value I can pack into that club. Thanks for listening. Stay humble and keep chasing awesome.